I'm from eYeka, and eYeka is an online community of over 300,000 very creative individuals. And what we do is that we tap into their collective creative power to give fresh ideas to brands. Fresh ideas for campaigns, for new products, for retail experience, all the way down to creating content to front these campaigns. So I'm going to talk about crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is a term that is attributed to a guy called Jeff Howe, who wrote an article as far back as 2006, and that was a time where a lot of people were worried about outsourcing. So if you were in Europe or in the US, you're biggest worried that there will be someone in India or China that will take your job and do it for 10% of what you paid for. And that was basically the zeitgeist of that time. You know, outsourcing, it's actually pretty scary. And Jeff Howe wrote an article for Wired, and he said, you guys get it wrong. Actually, you shouldn't be worried about the guys in China or India. There are 1 billion people connected online, and a lot of them have spare time. It's not going to be long before companies take out your challenges, you know, the tasks, and outsource that to this crowd. And that's going to be called crowdsourcing. And it was pretty visionary, all the way back to 2006. If we fast forward to today, we are at Crowdsourcing Week. Fantastic. So have we arrived? Is anyone, so should we pat ourselves in the back and say, you know, great, you know, crowdsourcing made it, it's now a huge industry, changed the face of the world? Or do we really think that outside this room, not many people care? You know, are we drinking too much of our own Kool-Aid, really? And that's actually quite an interesting question, and we wanted to find out, because obviously we're a crowdsourcing platform, we're a bit of a crowdsourcing agency, so we wanted to know the state of the industry. So we did a bit of research. Actually, we've been tracking the top 100 best brands as defined by the Interbrand ranking. You know, they published this ranking, I think, since 2000. Of the top most valuable brands, 100 of them. So the brands, the list of brands will change from year to year, but it's pretty much consistent, and we have been very consistent in tracking them. So we've been tracking pretty much all of their crowdsourcing activities. That's a project that has been initiated by a guy called Yannick Roth, who was doing his PhD in open innovation at that time, and he's working for eYeka for many years now. So he created that crowdsourcing timeline, and every time a brand is doing a project on social media, on a website, on a crowdsourcing platform, there's an announcement, we track that, and it's featured in a timeline. So we have a treasure chest of data here. So what did we learn by looking at the data for the last 10 years? The first thing is it's growing. That's the good news. In fact, if you look all the way to 2014, this is a cumulative adoption. So more projects build up throughout the year, so it's actually growing. 85% of the top global brands are using crowdsourcing as of 2014. So yes, it answers the question that it's all right, we're not deluding ourselves. Crowdsourcing is doing well. It's actually becoming mainstream. It is the new normal. Everyone is doing it. So that's very reassuring. So next, we were wondering, right, let's look at the industry verticals. Let's look at the sectors. Who is actually crowdsourcing? And you can see, and I don't know if I have a laser pointer here. Yeah. At the beginning, you can see this is technology. Technology here. That's this line. And so it started by pretty much being a nerdy thing, you know, crowdsourcing. And that's been the case, been dominated by technology company for quite a while. And look at this orange curve, which is FMCG company. This is the FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. It's food, it's drinks, it's shampoo. It's now overtaken technology. So in 2014, FMCG companies are the biggest users of crowdsourcing, which is quite a revolution, really. And you look at this inflection point around 2009, where you can see automotive companies waking up, and even banks, finance, insurance. Usually they are the late adopters to a trend, you know, in the adoption curve. And now financial companies, insurance companies, I say, yeah, right, that's something interesting here. We want to do it too. So that's really, if you have the takeaway is that crowdsourcing, it's no longer confined to something, the IT, the technology world, but it's something that is mainstream, adopted by the biggest brands that sell, the McDonald's of this world, the ones making shampoo, the P&G, the Unilever of this world. So we wanted to dig a little bit more into FMCG. So in addition to tracking the Interbrand global brand ranking, we looked at the top 10 FMCG companies. This is the bragging part. They're all our clients. And we looked at them we looked at what they were doing on the 4 biggest crowdsourcing platforms. And we looked for 2013, 2014. So again, every time we do a project in any of these platforms, if it's publicly available, if everyone can see it, we'll track it, we'll quantify. So what do we see? So when we look at that set of data, we can see that from 2013 to 2014, it's been growing by 48%, nearly 50%. So it's not the hockey stick curve. However, think of an industry. I think of advertising, for example. If they were growing 48% year on year, they would be popping up champagne for 1 month. It's amazing. It's amazing. So it's growing very fast. And when we look at the brands within the different sectors, what are the brands who are actually using crowdsourcing most? Well, we have Coca-Cola first, Pepsi, Danone was doing especially a lot a few years ago. And then technology company, it's actually Samsung. And interestingly, if you look at car companies, it's going to be Toyota, the red bar here. This is the brand that's using crowdsourcing the most. And then in the banking, financial insurance sector, surprisingly, it's a Spanish company. It's Santander, Spanish banking giant. They are the most innovative when it comes to tapping into the crowd, getting consumers involved into shaping, their strategy, their products. So, again, here we are looking at the top 10 FMCG companies we've been tracking. So here, these are the holding companies. So just now we look at the brands, individual brands. Now we are looking at the companies who own these brands in the FMCG space. So we have the biggest crowdsourcers over the last 2 years, 2013, 2014. Then we have P&G first, Unilever, which is not far behind. And you can see they are pretty much all of them are increasing their investment. All of them are doing more and more. That's the trend. Then we have Nestlé, Pepsi. Look at Pepsi, increase from 2013 to 2014 by 325%. They did 4 projects that we could track, and doing 17 in 2014. Huge investment. And if you look at the bottom of the list, you will see companies like General Mills, which is, let's say, fairly conservative. They're really basically beginning. But the guys at the bottom, Reckitt, Mondelez, Kellogg's, look at that, plus 200%, plus 100%, plus 150%. So again, crowdsourcing has become mainstream. Everyone is doing it. It's no longer to do with technology. It's to do with marketing, especially consumer marketing. FMCG companies are the ones who are investing most. And the pace of investment has accelerated, as you can see. It's basically pretty much doubling, if not tripling, year on year. So what do these guys crowdsource? Why do they go on crowdsourcing platforms? What do they talk to the crowd? First, they crowdsource video, by and large. Then they crowdsource IDs. Then other, which is a terrible category, catch-all, but think of, for example, photographies. I'm looking for pictures from all over the world. That will fit into that category. Design, could be packaging, could be designing logos, and so and so. Then castings. Castings are stuff like, I'm looking for talents. You could be the face of our new campaign. Participate in that contest. People vote. And then we have applications, mobile apps, so on, and then music contests. Show you a few examples of each of them. So crowdsourcing video, again, that's been pretty much the mainstay of crowdsourcing for many, many years. One of the best and most known examples is Doritos, who've been crowdsourcing their Super Bowl ad, for probably a decade. And that's the time of the year where you got the biggest audience in the US. pretty much the big live events which are pulling the crowd to watch TV nowadays. You know, there's nothing else. So the Super Bowl is the place where it's the most expensive TV spots, and Doritos is going to invite people, anyone, to submit a video, a TV spot, and it's voted, and the best ones actually get aired during the Super Bowl. And I don't know whether you've seen that one. It's the latest. It's actually a very, very funny story. The guy who made it is the guy who is actually just here, and he's actually a writer and a producer in a TV production company. He doesn't work in advertising, and he had a very cool idea, did a film for $2,000, submitted it, and was screened in front of an audience of 150 million, probably, people. Could you play the video?
Board folks, just go ahead and take any empty seat that you see.
I hope it's not contagious. So I do have it. When your mom wakes up, can you tell her about me?
It's a simple, funny idea. You know, it's not a super production, but it's clever, it's witty. So crowdsource, we can crowdsource videos, we can crowdsource ideas. This is a project we run for P&G. They were, P&G and especially Oral-B is the market leader in electric toothbrushes by far. And they were interested to explore, what if we could connect our toothbrush to the internet? What could a connected toothbrush deliver? In terms of functionalities, in terms of benefits, what would you want? So we've been doing a lot of work with their R&D, their marketing team, of course, their agencies, their partners, consultancies, and so on. And they say, well, maybe we haven't explored, maybe we haven't pushed it that far. We're going around in circle a little bit. Why don't we put it to the crowd and see what comes out? I'm just going to play the case study of the project. If you can play the video. Thank you.
We are going to launch the world's first Bluetooth-connected rechargeable brush from start to finish in 18 months. We knew consumers were interested in improving their oral health and gaining more control of their oral health on a day-to-day basis. We had no resources, we had no money, and we had no best approach. We knew time was critical, and the first mover advantage in this space would be the person, you know, who could launch the first product. So the community helped us to anticipate many of the issues and questions that we then faced, and helped us work through already some of the problems that we came up with. The quality and number of responses from the eYeka community was extremely high. We were very pleased internally. They gave us a huge head start, and it really helped us to gain a lot of time and anticipate some of the problems that we then, in the development of the product, in particular, the importance of content, the importance of gamification, the importance of the family interactivity, socialization. These were all elements that we hadn't thought about, we hadn't anticipated. The community helped us to work those through. The highlights of the submissions were the quality of the thinking, and I think that would never have been possible without working with eYeka and the community. We have launched the world's first Bluetooth-connected rechargeable brush. We're shipping already in many different markets. And the response from retailers, from the profession, and from consumers has been exceptionally good.
So basically here again, it's the possibility to tap into the crowd to broaden, you know, your horizon. They already had some ideas, but they felt that they could get more. And they got fantastic, you know, feedback from the creators, and all the illustration that you saw in the little video, actually, this is what the crowd submitted. They did presentation, they did drawing to illustrate their idea and convey their thoughts better. And then we put that together, analyze it, and bring that back to P&G, and they feed that into their product innovation cycle. This is about design crowdsourcing. This is to do with packaging. It's actually a little coffee brand is from Serbia, but they sell, I think, in like 16 countries, and they were interested to refresh their packaging. Why? Because they have big competitors with deeper pockets, and it's a local player, and they wanted to stand out. And they look at what's on the market, they work with agencies, and again, they say, maybe we could get some fresher thinking. Again, that's the role of a crowd. You don't know who's going to turn up. They come from different backgrounds, different cultures. They don't know your market. They don't know your brand. Therefore, they have a very intelligently naive point of view on your problem. They ask questions that nobody is asking anymore. They thought of things that people say, oh, yeah, we tried that 10 years ago. It never worked. Well, maybe it will work today. So they come with that very naive approach, but again, intelligently naive. And one of our creators, submitted that, a series, very modern, very stylish take on coffee packaging, which is really very traditional and just show basically coffee grains and color-friendly coffee colors. It's green or it's brown, etc. And it's turned into this. Basically, this is the final product. They literally work from the design from the creator and finalize it and launch it, and it's available on shelves. And this is actually the winner of a crowdsourcing competition that we organize. Her name is Anna Tang. And this is basically a nickname on our platform. And she's from California. And so she's never been to Serbia. She doesn't know the brand at all. But she likes to solve creative challenges. And she thought she could bring something to the table. So we can also, when it comes to crowdsourcing, like talent casting, which is the other category of crowdsourcing projects, that's an example. It's a bit old, but it's actually quite a reference in the genre, if you like. It's McDonald's asking consumers to say, tell us some personal stories, which have to do with fun, with inspiration, with empowerment, and send us a picture to illustrate that story. And then there will be a filtering process. We put it down to the crowd. People will vote. The best stories will be featured on our packaging, which is pretty good exposure. And their packaging is a media in itself, given the millions and millions of cups or bags, actually, that they sell. Crowdsourcing apps, which is something that is getting more and more popular. So more and more companies are realizing that they don't have all the answers inside. Therefore, they're opening up their R&D, their innovation process, and including automotive companies, and say, right, what if we could connect the car to the internet? What if it could be connected? Apart from music and maps, what would you want? And then again, crowds of developers, people come up with ideas, and these are turned into actual products. This is Nokia crowdsourcing music. And they are looking to remix their jingle, the famous Nokia, and they invite people to remix it. So I won't play it for the sake of time. And again, crowdsourcing pictures going to others. Thomson Reuters working with Nokia again and say, it's about empowering women. What does empowering women means to you in a picture, in one single picture? And photographers, people from all over the world contribute, and it makes for a fantastic collage or exhibitions that is really comes from the grassroots. So what we observe, we've seen the different types of crowdsourcing projects you can do, and this is what these brands are doing. When we look at 2013 and 2014, we notice something very interesting. If we segment by crowdsourcing content, like a piece of film, a picture that you're actually going to use in a campaign, so it's production, versus crowdsourcing ideas. Give me an idea for a campaign, for a product. We notice that the share of projects in ideation has been growing a lot compared to 2013, which is a very interesting trend, because what it means is that crowdsourcing is kind of maturing. It's moving up the ladder from a lot of companies, and I heard this morning talking about, well, my client is procurement. Interestingly enough, a lot of our clients are procurement too. Usually, when your client is procurement, they are looking at crowdsourcing for the cost efficiency that they can derive, as opposed to traditional partners. Brilliant, it's cheap. Therefore, yes, it's procurement, it's cost savings. In fact, the clients we want is the global brand director, if you're in marketing. It's the guy who has the money and shape the strategy, the direction for the brand in the foreseeable future. And that's actually what's happening. Crowdsourcing is moving from production to ideation. It's moving up the value chain. It's becoming strategic for organizations. And where do brands crowdsource? Well, initially, they did that on their own websites, then realized actually no one goes there, so it didn't work. Then they went into Facebook, social media, and increasingly, as you can see, the share of crowdsourcing platforms, so online communities, platforms which are solely dedicated to run crowdsourcing projects, has been steadily increasing to the point that now it's more than 2/3 of projects crowdsourcing happen on crowdsourcing platforms. So crowdsourcing is becoming professionalized. You have people like the lady I show you, Anna Tang from the States. She makes, I think, 70 or 80% of her revenue participating in crowdsourcing projects. This is how she earns a living. She's a freelancer. You know, she's got 1 or 2 regular clients. Most of the money is participating on crowdsourcing projects. And the best global brands, again, are 3 times more likely to use crowdsourcing platforms. So again, it's professionalization of the industry. And then, among my last slides, we looked at, over the last 10 years, what are the platforms that organize crowdsourcing projects. And again, the data may be a little bit skewed because it's only for the top 100 global brands defined by Interbrand. So if you have a platform which does 1 million projects, but for local brands which is not in that ranking, it will not be counted. But you can see the range all the way from OpenIDEO to DeviantArt, which is obviously a bit more arty, to Innocentive, which is more about tech R&D projects, all the way basically to us, Morphim, Tongal, Pop10, Zupa, Talent House, and so on in terms of number of projects. All right, so last slide. It's the return on investment of crowdsourcing. So why is it gaining traction? Why is it getting more and more popular? We've seen that it's mainstream, it's accelerating, everyone is doing it, it's more strategic. Well, there's a reason behind it. It's because it works. And when we look at the return on investment of crowdsourcing, people see many, many different benefits. First one is speed. And speed is basically, here it's for a telecom company looking for edutainment concept, for a new product for kids. And through the crowd, they were able to get workable prototype ideas in 3 weeks, as opposed to 3 months for a design school, for 3 months for a design agency, and 6 months from a design school. So 700% acceleration. So the crowd allows you to do it faster. Coke, we're doing a lot of work for them about creative concepts for some of their products. And what happened is adoption. The video, the ads, the concepts created by the crowd tends to resonate better with consumers. It's created by consumers, and it works better with other consumers. So here again, we have stellar figures in terms of consumers love it, but also the local markets find that, yes, we want to use these ads because it's much better what we produced before. And obviously, it's more affordable. Campaign performance. So again, crowdsourcing video, content, IDs, delivers on campaign, again, because it resonates better with other consumers. And then lastly, as we've seen in the case of Oral-B, it allows you to come up with fresher thinking to make products that are going to resonate better in market, as you can see with the successful launch of this Oral-B connected toothbrush, really. So I will invite you to download the full report on our platform, eYeka.com. It's available there. And if I have a few minutes for questions, I will be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Rapon Cere here.
Hello.
I wanted to know, could you share what sort of a role do you play when it comes to crowdsourcing? Does the FMCG brand outsource it completely to your team at eYeka? Or are they also interacting, engaging with your community?
Okay, so we are a crowdsourcing platform. So the heart of what we do is that community of creators. And we are really much the facilitator, the middleman. So we have a platform. So we have the access to the community, which brands usually don't have. So we sell that access to a community. We enable them to tap into the crowd, but we also add a lot of value to it. We don't play simply the role of a middleman. That's why we say we are a crowdsourcing platform and a bit like a crowdsourcing agency. In the sense of, we've done that for many, many years, so we learn through trials and errors, basically, the science and the art of finding the right project and turning a business or marketing challenge into a competition or a project that a crowd will understand, that they will find fun and that they will want to participate in. So that's the first bit, is that we give you access, we transform a boring marketing challenge in something fun that someone says, you know what, I will spend my afternoon on that project for free. And then what we do as well is that we moderate, curate, feedback to the creator to sharpen their work. So when they ultimately send their final solution to the client, it's the most relevant and the most original solution. And then we provide a layer of analysis. So we look at all the submissions we get from our creators in response to a contest, and we make sense of them. So we have an in-house team of strategic planners, which is the team I'm leading, and we work with a lot of partners which are category experts, semioticians, creative directors, and so on, again, to sharpen the output and the quality of the creative thinking behind it.
Thank you.
Good.
Joel, excellent presentation and a lot of good data to see. Question, in one of your slides, you have talked about some of the industries which are adopting crowd innovation and all, right? Now, do you see a trend with respect to these industries globally, or they are concentrated more from a specific geography where that geography branch is more open for this crowdsourcing compared to the other one?
That's a very interesting question. So I don't have the answer right now at hand. So I'm going to speak anecdotally from an eYeka standpoint, as opposed to this is what we have observed over the last 10 years. Okay. Interestingly, what we see is that crowdsourcing is very buoyant in Europe, especially in markets, for example, like France. UK is actually slightly a little bit behind. There's a lot of crowdsourcing, but it's more co-creation. It's face-to-face, getting consumers to collaborate, as opposed to tapping into a crowd online, for example, or a platform. Italy, obviously, you know, with Zupa, you know, it's actually, interestingly, continental Europe, except for Germany, and for some reasons, where although there's Hive, it seems to be kind of buzzing. There's a lot of things happening there. Companies and even governments get it, and they have been doing it for a while. In the US, I mean, it's kind of a home of crowdsourcing, kind of started there, but for some reasons, it took a while to shift from video to ideation. It seems that when you, until a few years ago, when you were in the US and you talk about crowdsourcing, yeah, don't worry, we know, Doritos, Super Bowl, It was, you know, it's just crowdsourcing video content. And it's, for some weird reason, it took a while, at least with FMCG or big brands or marketers outside of the startup scene in California. With the big advertisers, it took them really a while to understand that it's not only about video production. You get the crowd to think for you. That's the value. And in Asia, surprisingly, it's booming. We do a lot of work in Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, of course. That's why we're here. And Australia is a huge market for us. So there's no... I would say there's no black spot where nothing happens in the world. It's kind of gaining tractions, but it's at different levels in different regions and different countries. But it is pretty much a global movement.
Great. Azza, one more question there.
Hi, Azza from Tunisia. So thank you for your speech. I can say that eYeka has been inspiring me to establish my own platform, crowdsourcing platform in Tunisia.
Okay.
But I've been facing, I would say, one problem, one issue, is that companies, most of them, don't want to always go for the contest because they don't want their competitors to see their brief. So they are kind of scared about that. So my question is, how would you convince a company to go without being scared of competition?
Yeah, of course. We get that all the time, you know. I mean, it's a story of my life. It's interesting. I mean, as a thought starter, I mean, interestingly, I really believe that the world has shifted from, you know, we innovate in the lab, you know, and it's secretly guarded, and we do everything ourselves, and one day we'll release it to the world, and everybody will love it. It doesn't work this way anymore, because, you know, we've had a lot of interesting codes before, and, you know, there are more smarter people outside your organizations than inside your organization. It's absolutely so true. When you look at Procter & Gamble, when they started their first crowdsourcing initiative, it was a program called Connect plus Develop. And that was a fundamental shift. I think it was under Alex Leafley or something like that, which was, I think, the CEO of the time. And the idea was the recognition that just having the idea for a product, it's a commodity. The value is not the idea. The value for them is to bring it to market. And they have a know-how to test, make sure the product will get market adoption, to manufacture it and to distribute it. This is really the strength of P&G. The idea, again, is a bit of a commodity. You know, for them, they see their core competency as launching that, the go-to-market part. So therefore, if the idea is, if that part is most important than generating ideas, we can open up the idea generation. And that's how we started Connect plus Develop. Swiffer, for example, you know, the little Bloom, you know, etc. That comes from Connect plus Develop. It's an idea that came from outside P&G, from the crowd, which is very interesting. So I think usually it's a good starting point to discuss with companies, but a lot of them obviously are, for obvious reasons, are more conservative than others. So the way we do that is you must be prepared to share some information to make so that the crowd can work on something that is going to be useful to you. If you withhold everything, then they're going to come up with solutions, but they have half of the picture. If you have a secret formula, of course you're not going to put that, you know, public, obviously. So share what you can share. There's always a bit of a tension between, you know, keeping it secret versus sharing it. But share enough for the crowd to be able actually to work. And then there are a number of options, like you can make the brand confidential. You can launch a project at a category level. So say, for example, a financial company who say, I don't want my competitors to know that I'm working on a credit card, a new type of credit card. Then you don't need to say the name of the brand. You can just say, invent the future of credit cards. And it's a category level. And then you get ideas. But in the brief, you can actually push the community in a certain direction that fits what the brand is about, the direction, etc. So many ways. Or you can make a contest which is hidden, which is you don't make it public. It's invitation only. So you choose the members of the crowd you want to invite. You can only do that if you have a scale, and there are a lot of trade-offs. Because if you invite people, you are missing out on the genius idea that will come from someone you haven't identified, you haven't invited. And that's really the beauty of crowdsourcing. So this is really a big trade-off.
Great insights. Thank you, George.
Okay, thank you.
I have one
Thanks.
last question. So what companies like eYeka is doing to fix the problem, let's say, for non-paid people? Like,
oh, got it, right.
So something like, I really, you know, we want to discuss this more. We want to make sure that there's really some mechanics that the platforms like you are doing for that.
Okay, this is a huge topic. It is very controversial because it's really about the ethics of crowdsourcing. And I personally am in a belief that there are certain projects, for example, at eYeka that we refuse to do. When a company comes to us and say, oh, you know, I want a series of TV commercials, and this is exactly what needs to be filmed. There's a woman, she needs to enter from right to left, and she look at the camera that way, and the camera is at 30 degrees. So they give us basically a script, you know, and a production to-do list. And what they are looking for basically is a cheap way to produce it. Simple as that. So again, the reason why people participate on crowdsourcing platform in their free time is because they enjoy. They enjoy the creative challenge. They like to do creative things. If it becomes a task, if it becomes a job, a chore, where they get nothing out of it, but they only have to execute, it's no longer a fun project. It's a job. They are being forced to or asked to do a job for which they are not getting paid. This is the project that ethically we should not do in crowdsourcing. There should always be something for the creator as a win-win situation. Again, the ability to express themselves, the ability to give something to the brand because they truly believe that they can make a difference. It cannot be basically, it cannot be a task. So that's, I think, to me, is the first thing. So choosing the projects, which it's okay to crowdsource. People do that in their spare time. So it's actually a few hours here and there. So again, you can't give them something where they will need to spend a week to work on your project. First, it doesn't work. They won't do it. And again, it's exploitation.
Yeah.
Again, so then when it comes to the actual payment thing, so usually in contests, the winners get paid. They get cash prizes. The non-winners, at the moment, we have a point system that people accumulate. The objective is to, in the future, to convert this point system into something which is that you can actually monetize.
I like that.
It could be, I don't know, it could be vouchers, it could be discounts, it could be products on Amazon, it could be something like that.
Got it.
And we always try to give something extra to our creators as well. So PR, we make them famous, something that they actually valued.
Good.
Feedback, etc. But I totally agree with you that the industry has to take the ethical part into consideration because the industry is professionalizing as well. And it's going to be the biggest, I think, one of the biggest questions in the years to come.
Great. Joel, thank you very much.